Welcome to the Embodiment Podcast. This show is for you if you see the body as more than a brain taxi. It's for people interested in coming home to the body as a holistic aspect of who we are and how we live. Episodes contain practical tips, exercises you can take away, and interviews with specialists from around the world. I'm your host for today, Mark Walsh. On the show today is Jose Zuber. He's joining us from Solothurn, fresh out of a kids' Aikido class. I'm looking forward to this. I think this could be a fun one, so welcome.
Yeah, thank you for having me in this wonderful podcast.
I would love to hear a little bit about your life. How did you get interested in the body and movement and all the things you're interested in?
Well, that's a funny question to start with. My mother still likes it to tell from occasion to occasion that when I was in kindergarten and we had to dance or jump around, that I was moving like a sack of potato and very clumsy, she always tells me. And I personally guess like a psychic, equibalance, I said, well, I'm going to show you that I really can move myself very smoothly. So when I've seen Dirty Dancing in the age of 16, I was so amazed how Patrick Swayze was dancing and hovering above the dance floor. So I just wanted to start with dance. And in the very next days, I started my first dance class with mambo dancing. And this was actually the beginning of a lot of different things about movement, contact improv, and a lot of other stuff I have done since then.
Okay, and give us some of the sort of greatest hits. What has been your sort of main movement training?
Yeah, okay, so when I started with ballroom dancing, we had a couple, which was the first couple which wanted to attain really professional ballroom competition tournaments. And this was inspiring a lot of people and friends around me. So I wanted to do that as well. So from then on, we weren't just having dance for fun, but we really started working with body movements, straight lines, having equilibrity, stuff like that. And you really show yourself. That's very important on the dance floor as well. And then finally, after some 2-3 years, I had my first tournament in ballroom dancing with Latin American dancers, and I was really, I really remember it was really like, wow, now I'm there where Patrick Swayze was. And this went for a couple of years. And if you keep on working on yourself, you get level for level higher and higher. But after, I guess, about 6-7 years, I just realized that I was a little bit fed off about all this, well, let's call it masquerade. You had to, man had to put, these creams which makes you more brown, false eyelashes, all this stuff. And I really thought, well, do I really want to do this anymore? And then I quit all this ballroom dancing stuff, and I was searching in free form of dancing, and then I started my first contact improv and all this new stuff where you could move as you felt and your body wanted to move. Yeah.
And tell us about the Aikido then. So how did that get started?
Well, that's a complete other story, which finally starts melting together. When I was in primary school, we were in a school where we had older students, and they started to bully, to beat younger kids, and I was one of their favorite
targets, victims.
Yeah, targets. Yeah, let's say it like that. And I was still wearing glasses, and it happened a lot that I came home with broken glasses. And my mother just was saying, "Hey, this can't go on like that." And I remember when I was in the city here in Solothurn, and I have seen the first advertisement about karate, and I knew, okay, I want to do that to be able to at least to defend myself. And then I started for about 10-15 years doing karate. And that was very funny. From the very first lesson, after I went home, from this point on, no one was bothering me anymore. It was like I was like radiating, don't mess with me because I'm going to fight back. And that was really interesting because I didn't change anything, but I guess my inner attitude towards the outer world was changing, and I didn't actually realize that it was going on like that. But from this point on, no one did bother me anymore.
I've heard that from quite a few martial artists, actually, that, you know, most of self-defense is not the moves, it's the attitude. And I've heard this from self-defense experts. I've heard it anecdotally from people, you know, Jose Bueno said, I worked in the slums of Brazil for 20 years and no one ever bothered me. You know, there's a sort of attitude that you carry in your body, literally an attitude, which is, it seems to sort of, you know, predatory people are looking for victims. They're not looking at people who are sort of solid and grounded in their bodies.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, go on.
Yeah. Yeah, no. What is actually the question?
I'm just hearing a bit about your story, really, because I don't know much about it. So kind of a bit of context here. And actually, let's just place you, Solothurn. Where is that in the world? Listeners may be wondering about the accent and wondering where you're based.
Yeah, well, actually, Solothurn for happily is not the Bronx like in New York, where you really have to be inside the house after 6 o'clock. It's really a nice city. Everyone knows everyone. It's about 50,000 people. So if you're a little bit engaged in the city, you have been known and you know people.
Where's it near, though? Let's just place it. Switzerland? I mean, what's the nearest?
Well, yeah, it's actually very in the center, in the heart of Switzerland, very close to Bern. It's half an hour, so very close to the capital. And well, when I was 13, 14, I wasn't, of course, aware about this energetical stuff, about this attitude changing inside of me. For now, it's clear that people who want to bully other people are unconsciously or consciously looking for people who are like victims, which is very easy to, I guess, to feel and to find out. But I wasn't aware about this stuff in the age of 13, 14, 15. I just was amazed that really from the first lesson I went home, I felt like empowered, and I felt like now I know to fight back if someone wants to knock me down. And I guess just only the thought made like energy shift inside of me. And from this point on, it just clicked in, it just changed. So that was really amazing. And years later, I realized that this has to do with a lot of energy stuff, which is going on inside and outside of you. Yeah.
Great. And maybe, I mean, Aikido is your main art now, is that right?
Yeah. Then I remember as well, this was a turning point as well. After, I guess, 15 years doing karate, I went home and my mother saw me undressing and she was like shocked seeing me. I had bruises all over my body. I wasn't actually aware of that. I just thought it's normal. But my mother was shocked and said, "Hey, what's going on? You look like." Right. And then I realized, okay, this is not really normal, and this is not really what I want, because this was some kind of semi-full contact karate. So if you block and block and block, you get bruises.
Yeah.
And that was a shifting point. And I said to myself, okay, maybe there are different ways to defend myself. And then I was searching for other stuff. And this was exactly when MTV and the Sport Channel was coming on in TV. Before we just had Switzerland TV. And I remember when I saw an international martial art gathering where from all kind of countries, Vietnam do all this crazy stuff were showing their style. And I was, of course, curious about the karate. We did a lot of kiai and shouting, and I could identify myself with that. And then I remember suddenly a group of people with hakamas. Of course, I didn't know what a hakama is in the time in this age. But the people with these hakamas came on the mats, and it was totally different energy. They were very silent. They were not like showing off. They did some unspectacular stuff, and I was, okay, that's a little bit boring. But finally, and that was the thing which really amazed me a lot, the teacher, the sensei, went in the center of the mats. He clapped 2 times with his hands, and the 15 students all stood up and just were attacking him like crazy. And the only thing he was doing was like dancing and turning and making circles with his hands and arms, and the people were flying around. And I immediately realized this is not fake. This is not a choreography which has been studied before. This is freestyle. And this was so amazing for me that I said, okay, that's what I really want to do. And then I was, of course, searching for the next near possibility to do Aikido. And then the Aikido way started in my life. Yeah.
Wow, and it's interesting, these demos, and sometimes I remember seeing Tissier Sensei on a sort of similar.
Actually, it was Tissier Sensei. Of course, I didn't know him.
I thought it might
actually, it was Tissier Sensei in his best moments on the mats. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, there was the Bursty demos from France, weren't they? They were really quite spectacular demos. Yeah. And it was really nicely done and very smooth. And, as you say, sometimes people get drawn to an attitude they see in a martial art as much as an energy that's there, rather than necessarily a logical kind of reason. It can be a kind of felt thing of like, oh, I really want to give that a go,
Yeah. And the funny thing is, actually, although I really tried to attend a seminar with Tissier Sensei for years, it actually happened last year, the first time. And he was already a little bit older, not more so fluently, but still very impressing. And I was finally happy to tell him personally, hey, thank you for inspiring me 20 years ago to start with Aikido. It was really amazing what you did then in this, probably it was in French, this martial art meeting. And finally the circle closed, so to say. Yeah.
Right. Wow. 20 years later.
Yeah.
These things happen.
Yeah.
I definitely saw that one when I was at university. It wasn't the first thing I saw, but it was about a year into doing Aikido. I remember thinking, wow, that's how it can look,
Yeah.
Okay. So you're doing Aikido still now, and you're teaching kids, right?
Yeah. I guess probably a lot of Aikido class, sooner or later, if they advance more, maybe first or second black belt, they have the lust to give classes by themselves. Mm-hmm. And it was the same with me. As soon as I felt a little bit sure with the techniques, I wanted to give classes. But unfortunately, in my small hometown, there was not many place or space to do that. So I realized, okay, adults, we had already 3 dojos.
Wow.
And I just realized, okay, adults is already, the space is occupied. Because I'm an art teacher officially, giving art classes in normal schools, I just said, hey, well, no one is giving classes for kids and adolescents, so let's start with that. And I started with only 5 kids, the very first class, and already in the second class there were 10 kids on the class, because everyone brought someone else with him. And from then on, I just realized, okay, that's what I want to do. I want to seed the seeds of peace into the spirits and into the hearts and even into the bodies of these young people, because they are open to listen to the stories, to what I'm telling them. Because adults somehow sometimes are a little bit resistant. They just want to accept what they feel is appropriate for them. The kids, they are like fertile soil. And if you know some good stories, if you are open-hearted, you really can work wonderfully with kids and teenagers. And that's what I'm doing since around, 15 years, more or less. Yeah.
Wow, you've done it quite a bit. I mean, I've done it a little bit. I think the first class I ever taught at dojo I was Uchideshi at was the kids class, and I'd worked a lot with kids, and I ended up doing working with kids in Ethiopia and Brazil and a few other places. So I just shared a bit of kids teaching Aikido with you, and it's normally quite hard work, isn't it? But it gives a lot of energy, but it's not the easiest thing in the world to do.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing is, a bunch of kids, like I just had half an hour before, you have to be really, really there. You have to be present. Yeah. If you're just a little bit off with your mind, the kids are just doing what they want, and for sure not what you want to do them. So it helped me in the last 15 years to really be very present as soon as I enter the dojo, as soon as the first kid shows up in the dojo. And the magic actually is, if you have 20 kids on the mat and you give yourself fully into the space, into this field, when you go home, I guess I never ever, maybe once or twice when I really had some frustrated moments, but in the last 15 years, I never ever more or less went home not being fully happy, fully satisfied, fully energized. Because if you give your energy and you have 20 kids on the mats, your energy you give in comes back 20 times multiplied. And that's really powerful. And that's the gift if you work with kids like that. Yeah,
it's interesting. If you come in half-hearted with kids, you go out exhausted. Whereas sometimes if you come in, you've got to be up for it, haven't you? And then be like, right, okay, give it my all, and you can come out feeling really energized by it, that kind of youthful energy. Yeah, I've definitely had that experience. And is that what you most love about it then? This being fully present, working with people who are open-minded, who are able to learn quickly.
Yeah.
What's the main thing you enjoy about it?
Well, the thing is different as in the school, where you just have to work with the kids in the class, which the system brings you in. The kids and the parents which come to my classes are fully free, coming freely, unconditionally by themselves. They really want to be with me. They want to learn from me. So it's really from the very first moment a nice connection. Of course, there are kids. They show they come for trainings 4, 5, 6 times, and then they just disappear. Sometimes they say, well, it's not what I'm searching for. Sometimes it's not creating a connection with myself because I'm a little bit different that they expect. But normally the kids which are staying, they stay sometimes for, well, I have kids, they are even since 6, 7, 8 years since I started actually in Solothurn on the mats. Mm-hmm. And that's creating really a deep connection, a deep bonding. And the older they grow, it's more not only student-teacher, it's more like older brother and younger brother, as I sometimes call it, because the vision of O-Sensei was that Aikido brings all together like a big worldwide family. So sometimes I really tell them, hey, I look at you and I see younger brothers and sisters. And if you want to see me like that, that's fully okay as well. So it's really nice to have this student-teacher connection, but as well like sister and brother, like older brother and younger sister and brothers. So that's something which I really like having in this Aikido classes. And the other stuff which I really like is, for me, working with kids is as well like an experimental space and zone. If I learn something new, I mean, we have both cool teacher around us, Aikido teacher, which we share, and other cool teacher. Every time if I learn something new, I'm really curious to check it out, how the kids will react to it. And sometimes they are really, wow, that's cool. Sometimes they are a little bit, what the fuck is that? And sometimes I really have to drop it because I just realize, okay, they don't like it. Sometimes I have to adopt it for the kids. And for me, it's as well a little bit experimental zone where I really can experiment with new stuff I learn outside in the real world. So that's another nice thing I really like with working with kids, to have an experimental field where a lot is possible because kids are very, very open. I enjoy being around children because the openness of children. I do enjoy. There's a way in which when they're present, they're really fully present. They demand that. There's an openness there. And there's a playfulness quite often. Yeah.
Why don't we could slow it down a little bit as well, as by the way, some of the listeners, English is not as good as yours, so I wouldn't rush too much.
Yeah.
Let's paint a picture of an Aikido class. People may never have listening to this, maybe yogis or dancers like you were. What happens in Aikido class, and then particularly the differences with your kids' Aikido class? Paint a picture for what this looks like.
Yeah. I guess. I have attended a lot of kids' classes with other teachers, and I realized with the years that I consider myself really committed to the vision of Osensei. I read a lot of books about Osensei, from Osensei, and for me, Aikido is not really just giving them a technical class. That would be too much boring for myself and probably with the years as well for the kids. So what I really want is to create like a living experimental field during the 1.5 hour we are on the mats together. Of course, especially if it's cold outside, we do a warm-up. So sometimes I do like 5 minutes shaking, so like the Osho shaking.
Okay.
Yeah, by the way, I work a lot with music. I'm very inspired by Patrick Sensei in Montreux, who more or less
Cassidy,
Patrick Cassidy. Every time there is music playing in the background, and I really felt inspired of that. So I work with music as well a lot. So I do like a very vivid piece of music. So I have to shake for about 4 or 5 minutes, shaking, and then the music stops, and I have to stand like in a qigong posture, like in a basic posture, and then we do like some qigong movements. I want them to learn to synchronize their movement with their breath. That's very important for me, because I tell them if you can connect or synchronize the power of your breath with the power of your body, then two forces are already connected and not only adding but like multiplying themselves. And then of course I tell the all advanced students, and if you even use your mind by doing these exercises, maybe like you can imagine having your arms in front of you, and then you open up like hugging a big tree, and then closing the arms again, like the tree gets smaller and then up big again. So they have to imagine like something like they have a bubble gum between the hands, and they stretch the bubble gum. And then they exhale, and the bubble gum is contracting. And so they even use the power of their mind, the imagination, and then they already have combined or synchronized 3 very powerful forces: the force of the power of their mind, the power of the breath, the power of the movement. So that's maybe a warm-up for the first 10-15 minutes. And then normally, depends a little bit of the atmosphere, I do some rolls, backward rolls, forward rolls. More advanced students can do even jump rolls over obstacles. And then after that, we do some techniques, maybe 1, 2, 3 techniques. And then like today, Wednesdays as well, a little bit exploring time. I do stuff I have from contact improvisation or yoga. So today we did a lead and following exercise. So the first one was always 2 people together standing in front of each other. And one was the leader and the other one was the follower. So the leader does very slow motion moves, and the other does exactly the same, but just mirrored. So like a mirror, if I make movements with my right hand, the other one has to do the same movement with his left hand. So they have to concentrate a lot, because if you're not fully there, you cannot really do exactly what the guide is doing, the leader. So this was one of the leading exercises. Of course, then we switch roles, and the other one is the leader. And then we did a continuation of this process. You probably know this exercise as well from Miles and Patrick. We connect the 2 palms together. They are like Velcro, like glued together. And one is the leader. He just works with the hand movements. And because the other, with his hand, is sticked to the palm, he has to adopt and move his body accordingly to the movements of the leader. And so they learn how to lead, and the other learns how to follow.
Okay, so these are sort of body-mind training skills. So yes. Some Aikido techniques, throws or locks or whatever, but I know in a lot of kids' classes you don't use locks quite often in the UK. They tend to take out a lot of the joint locks for kids, their development. But then there's also this just general body-mind training using these different tools. Yeah.
So is the question what else do you use during the the classes.
Well, do you use games, for example? I know a lot of kids Aikido teachers like to play different games with the kids.
Yeah, games are a very essential part. Normally, sometimes I even start with a game, sometimes, but more or less every classes ends with 5 till 10 minutes with a game. And I always tell them, even if it's a game, they always have the opportunity to learn really essential stuff. I don't know the names for the plays or the games in English, but very famous is you have the softball and you try to how do you say to throw the ball against another, and if you hit him, he has to sit on the ground. Uh-huh. And if he can catch the one who is on the ground, if he can catch again the ball, he has the right to stand up. Or another player can give him the ball, so he's like releasing him from being sitting on the ground. So there are different levels I have to be aware. First of all, on the Wednesday training, the beginners and the advanced, the little ones and the older ones are all mixed together. This is very special on the Wednesday training. So normally the older ones sometimes forget a little bit the younger ones, and I just play among them. I just want to hit the other older one, and I always have to remember then, just include everyone. This is, if you just make your own ego game, you exclude the others. So be aware everyone is included. That's the social thing. Then the other thing is, if only 2-3 of the whole group are just trying to smash everyone, it's as well like an ego game. They want to bring everyone on the ground. So they have to learn as well. If they do that, the game is already over, and then we finish the class. So if they want to keep on the game running, they have to set free from time to time someone who is sitting on the ground. So that's as well a social aspect, not only throwing and bringing people down, but as well releasing them so they can play again. And then there are other levels in other games which help them to realize that what we do in the game is actually like a metaphor for the real life outside of the dojo. So I really use a lot of funny games, and I always tell them before we start, what are the levels beside of having fun together? Yeah.
There's a bit of a disagreement I've seen between kids Aikido teachers. Some will teach almost like pure Aikido, and some will teach sort of almost pure games classes, and somewhere in the middle. There seems to be almost a bit of a tension here in the Aikido world. Have you come across this?
I didn't get that, Mark.
I've seen a tension in the Aikido world between teachers of kids Aikido who are playing mostly games and others who are doing very pure sort of traditional type Aikido classes. Yeah. Saying you don't need games. So there seems to be quite a wide range of whether you need, this sort of fun stuff or not.
Also, for me, it's very important to have as well the technical stuff, because finally it's an Aikido class and not just a mixed fuzzy whatever class. But I just realized, well, the thing is, when I started 15 years ago with kids classes, I was very keen on teaching them as quick as possible a lot of techniques. But then I realized it's getting boring for me and a little bit frustrating for the kids as well, only this very serious stuff. So I started bringing in the games and other fancy stuff. And now I try always to make a cool mix. Of course, I want them as well to learn some technique, because if they go to another place, like I heard today from a mother that a long-term, wonderful Aikido student, after 5 years, they are changing places where they live. So I have to, well, in a couple of months, I have to say goodbye to him. And really, I had tears in my eyes when I read the email today. And she told me that where they are moving and living later, that there is an Aikido school as well, and they already have attended and looked in, and he really likes how they work. So of course I want, if they go to a different dojo, that they not that I'm not overwhelmed and like frustrated, that I have the feeling they don't know anything about Aikido. But I just realized that kids are learning through games. Actually, a wonderful teacher once said, before we go to school, we learn by playing, and then we go to school, and then first we have to learn, and after school we maybe can play. But actually, they both are the same, are the back and the front of the same coin. So I really see it the same. I really use games to show what I really want them to learn. But finally, of course, we have to do some techniques as well. So when I prepare myself, I always try to really have. I always prepare myself visually. Every class I prepare. That doesn't mean that I always do what I prepare. I'm still open to whatever happens. But I see when I prepare the class, okay, I have a little bit game, then I have a little bit fancy stuff, then I have 1, 2, 3 techniques. So I try to make a good mix or a good smoothie so everyone has something when he goes home from the classes.
Break to tell you about our program. So as well as the podcast, we have various kinds of online training. So we have the Embodied Yoga Principles online training, as well as in-person training. Embodied Yoga Principles for yogis who want to get yoga off the mat, specialize in the psychology of yoga, unique postures. It's a 5-day training. We have one in Brighton, one in Berlin, and one in Austin, Texas. So if you go to Embodied Yoga Principles, you can find them. Also the online version of the training for people who can't make those dates. Excellent courses. The Embodied Yoga Principles training for the yogis. For the coaches and facilitators, we have the Embodied Facilitator Course. This is our flagship course. We offer it in Moscow, also in the UK. A 9-month adventure, a real deep dive into embodiment. It's the biggest embodiment program I do. It could be like movement people who want to work in business more. We have people like dancers and martial arts teachers come to learn more about working in mainstream settings, but also for coaches and trainers who want something really well structured and want to work on themselves, want to learn practical tools, learn how to work with the body in facilitation. If you can't make EFC, and it is a big ask, there's an online course we run called the Foundations of Embodiment Certification. So if you go to Embodied Facilitator, you'll find the in-person and then -FEC, FEC, F for Freddy, EC for Charlie, FEC. You'll come up with the Foundations of Embodiment Certification, and also do one-day events all around the world. So I'm just about to do a tour to Slovenia, Berlin, Copenhagen, Brussels, Amsterdam, and Brighton. The Brighton one is £10, which is like $15. So if you're coming from abroad, that could make that affordable. The Brighton one's always like a really big fun one, so that's coming up. Again, go to the Embodied Facilitator course to see all of these events. And we have a little online evening as well. If people just want a taster, again, that's £10. That's a 3-hour thing coming up as well. Embodiedfacilitator.com, embodiedfacilitator.com, and you'll find all those events or Embodied Yoga Principles for the yoga ones. Okay, so that's the stuff that I sell. Oh, and the book, the Embodiment book. If you want to get my book and learn about embodiment through reading, you can also get the Embodiment book available at Amazon and no good bookstores. So there we go. Excuse the interruption, and back to the episode.
There is this idea of Aikido as character training, not just technical training. So in that way, I think it's very well suited to training children, in that you're not trying to teach them to throw someone or whatever. It's more about training who they are. And then you've also mentioned this idea of embodying peace. So can you say a little bit more about what that is?
Yeah. I realized years ago when I was talking about peace, about bringing, I tell them sometimes Aikido, more or less a little bit freely translated, can as well be the path of love. And then sometimes I saw the faces and they were like looking at me a little bit puzzled because I didn't realize what I wanted to tell them. So I realized, okay, if I really want them to understand what the way of peace, the way of love, the way of harmony means, I have to make it somehow experience. They have to have the experience of it. Of course, if you do some techniques and you can guide the attacking energy of the attacker somehow around and it doesn't bump in each other, they realize through techniques that this is another way, as for example karate, where really body bumps into body. But I realized it's not enough to make them really understand what Aikido is all about. Mm-hmm. So I really took myself time to search for stories, for parables, metaphors, stories which really transport the theme, the issue of what I want to tell them. So I really have a bunch of good stories. Some stories I tell every half year. So some kids who are already a couple of years with me on the mat, they hear them maybe 3, 4, 5 times already. But it's always good repetition. And I realized with stories, you really can transport and communicate a lot of very complex themes, even like what is actually peace? What does it mean? How does peace express itself not only on the mat, but especially if they are in school, in kindergarten, in the family? It's about helping, cleaning the dishes. If mama has a bad day, not to make too much nonsense, but maybe to hug the mother. So I try really to give them a lot of examples how peace and love and all this stuff could express itself, especially during the time outside of the dojo. So that's one way with stories. And years ago, I actually had the opportunity to attend a samurai game. The samurai game has been invented in the 70s, I guess, from a very famous Aikido master.
George Leonard.
You know the name?
Yeah, George Leonard.
Yeah, Leonard. Yeah.
Aunt Charu's trained a lot of people who's trained by him now, so I know.
Oh wow! Okay. Yeah. So you know the whole samurai game.
I've seen 10 different samurai games. We include it in the actually more than 10 now, at least 12. We include. I was a participant in one, and then I was a ninja, and then we included it in the Embodied Facilitator Course. So every year, I watch my students fight to the death.
No, really? You do that?
Yeah. It's part of the coach training we do.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
A trainer called Francis Bryars, another one called Lawrence we work with, and there's one in Russia we work with called Marina.
Wow.
So I've seen the samurai game led by 4 different trainers.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you want to explain what it is? I know there's rules about what you can say and what you can't say. So don't want to say anything that breaks the rules.
Yeah. So the thing is, actually, this game has been invented by George Leonard because he realized in the 70s that he and for his students, he wanted to bring, even to help people to grow spiritually and as well mentally, emotionally, and as well bodily. And he developed with people this samurai same. People meet maybe for a full day or 2 days. And they are divided into groups, and there are in every group, it's like a combat. There are different roles. You already told one, the ninja, the samurai. And I know from Patrick Cassidy when I was playing at my black belt event as well, the samurai game, that a lot of, I guess, people are like developing the samurai game further and bring in some new ideas. But what I really liked is that during this samurai game, during the time, people are challenged to go out of their comfort zone, to do things they normally wouldn't do, to dare something they normally wouldn't do. And I know that the official samurai game has like a set of special exercises and challenges, because I did this official samurai game with you told the name Lawrence as well. But so this is really cool. But I really liked the special variation from Patrick Cassidy, which we were playing, because he even included a lot of other spiritual stuff into these samurai games. And 3 years ago, I was really on the point where I said, I need something for my most advanced and even adolescents. I mean, I work with kids from 6, 7 years, and I have kids or teenagers, 15, 16, 17. And I just realized that if they start to become a teenager, they need different stuff. They need not only techniques and nice stories, they need something for their growing body, for their expanding mind. And then I realized that this samurai game is a good platform, a good base to start with. But I as well realized that a lot of these exercises are especially for adults. So as well, once again, I started to think what could be of interest for younger people. So I did a 1 year test round 3 years ago. For 1 year, we met once a month. We cooked together. Sometimes we even looked at a cool movie like Matrix to inspire them a little bit. And then I developed own challenges for these young people. And after 1 year, a lot of them started with apprenticeship. So they left the dojo. So after 1 year, this whole samurai game came to an end. And
okay. So I need to jump in.
Yeah.
So the samurai game is a sort of trademarked thing by George Leonard's.
Yeah.
I'm sure other people doing it. So just for sort of legal reasons and also out of respect for those guys, I want to make clear that you're doing something different from the samurai game as done by those guys. This is something maybe inspired by that, influenced by that. But I just want to be really clear it's different, or else, I'm going to get a letter in the post.
No, that's very good that you mentioned that. It's really trademarked. It's very clear. You have to do facilitator training. And of course, I was, and I am inspired by the original samurai game.
Okay, so this is your own program.
And of course, I would like to call it as well samurai game for kids and teenagers, but I know this is this whole copyright stuff, and I'm still
Americans are doing that.
Yeah, I'm still figuring out how I want to call it. Mm-hmm. But samurai game, to be honest, is really a cool name for it. I hope I find something cool as well. And it's inspired and based on the principle of the original samurai game, of course. Yeah. So now I'm starting. Actually, I started this week with a new round. And I told every student, no matter how old he is, if you want to participate in this, is it okay if I say still a samurai game, or do we have a copyright problem afterwards?
They have a copyright on the samurai game.
Okay. So let's call it. Do you have a spontaneous idea how we can call it? Let's call it the Aikido game. Huh?
Okay.
Yeah. So I told every student before Christmas, if you want to participate in the next round, which is starting after winter holidays in 1 month, you have to do some kind of application. You have to really write a letter or drawing something and give it to me in the next 4 weeks in order to show me that you really want to be a part of this Aikido game. So because for me, that's a lot of extra work. It's extra preparation. I have to take myself time. It's not paid. So if I really want to do that, I really want just to work with the kids who really want to be in this Aikido game. So now I told them as well today, hey, now the field is open. You have 4 weeks. If you want to participate, you have to do some kind of creative application, a subscription, something creative to show me your intention to be a part of it. And then after winter holidays, in about 6 weeks, I will start with the first round. I have 2 older students who are very mature that will help me creating cool challenges, cool exercises. And I want to address the mind, the spirit. I want to address the kids emotionally. And I, of course, want to address as well the body. So just a couple of spontaneous ideas so that people know a little bit what I want to do. So one of my favorites, but I don't want to start with that because I don't want to frighten the kids with something which could be already a little bit too challenging, but they know already that it will come. I did 2 or 3 years ago the Iceman, the Wim Hof 10 weeks online course. So you probably know you have to do the cold showers, breathing, and all this fancy stuff. So one of the challenges, maybe not in the first week, but maybe March, April will be that I have to do every day at least a half a minute and maybe 1 minute and maybe 2 minutes of cold shower. And then they have to protocol. Everyone who is participating gets some kind like a sketchbook or a diary. So they have to write down their experiences, what they felt, what they thought about that, how they felt afterwards and before. So they have to contemplate as well about what they have to do. So this will, for example, address their body, of course. And another
challenges, some reflection, some creative stuff.
Yeah. Maybe
extended body, mind, spirit training program for them.
Yes, exactly. Of course, maybe they have to do as well, like to find, to create like a movement, which they are doing more and more like in slow motion. So they show after when the Aikido game goes to its end before summer holidays. So we all meet and everyone shows a particular movement in slow motion, because we both know doing things very quickly, it's very easy, but doing stuff very slowly, very in slow motion, it needs a lot of concentration, a lot of body awareness. So that could be another body challenge. And then, of course,
call this the samurai challenge, if you like samurai, because it strikes it to me that what you're putting together here is quite a challenging thing. You know, there's a test they've got to do to get in, and they've got to do some difficult things, you know, like, and especially like young guys, you know, like teenage boys, they like challenges.
Maybe that's a great idea, Mark. Instead of calling it, because, hey, it's
really, just for listeners' clarity, this is really quite different than George Leonard's samurai game. That's usually done in 1 day or maybe 2 days. And, you know, this is an extended program. It's really quite different. So I think you do need definitely a different name. So maybe Samurai Challenge would get the young men kind of, interested. Yeah,
challenge is maybe really the perfect word for that. And I'm really grateful that you gave me this inspiration. Because it's really the samurai game. There are really two parties playing against each other's, and finally the game is over. And this, you're fully right, is more like a challenge during a certain amount of time, maybe 4 or 5 months, where they are challenged every day, maybe every week, to do something a little bit more difficult, a little bit more challenging. So maybe the samurai challenge for kids and teenagers could be a nice name. So thanks for inspiration, Mark.
Oh, no problem. If you ever need help, by the way, listeners, if you ever need help with marketing and names and things like that, I'm normally pretty good at that stuff. So it's one of my... How do you bring this all together then? So I know your background, you talked about dance, Aikido, we've talked about content improv games. I know you've been involved in shamanism, I think, as well, right?
Yeah.
Like how do you, as we're sort of coming towards the end here, like, how do we integrate all this? Because there's so much good stuff, and people increasingly, I talk to people like you, you have these broad backgrounds. Like I'm dancing 5 rhythms tonight. I was doing Sistema Russian martial arts last night. I was doing open floor over the New Year's. It's like we do so much cool stuff, but we could get lost in that. It could become a mess, you know? Like how do we turn this into a delicious fondue that really is all nicely melted together?
Well, I guess in this kind of area, we are probably very, very, very the same, because I know that you have as well a very, very broad range of experiences. And I had a wonderful father who was an architect teacher. And already when I was a kid, he took me always on the travels when he was going with his students to Italy to do drawings and history study. So I realized unconsciously that my father is doing a lot of different stuff, even more that he needs to do. And later, when I was a little bit more mature, I realized, okay, he is a generalist. And there are other people who are more specialists, focusing on just one thing. And my father was just interested in more or less everything. So I consider myself as well as a generalist. And I remember when I was doing this and that and this and this and that as well, that people were always telling me, hey, you do everything, but nothing really for real. And this was really bothering me for a long time, for years, because I felt like not being good at something. Other already with 20, 25, they were maybe masters in football or doing this kind of craft or this kind of art. Yeah. And I did a lot of stuff, but I wasn't really master of something at all. But I still felt I just continued this path, and now more than 25 years later, I realized, well, let's use a metaphor. Maybe the others, the specialized, they just have one big tree with big roots in their garden. Uh-huh. And I have a lot of trees, maybe not mammoth trees, but I have actually a little forest now. So I can even go walk in my forest. So that's what happened in the last 30 years. I really did a lot of stuff, and of course nothing really grew so fast like other person who just focused on one thing. But if you have a lot of plants and if you are giving them water, attention over years and years and years, they start to grow as well. They start to have good roots as well. And now I see how this forest, how the trees are like making like a network among them. It's like they are now working more and more together. It's like the trees are partnering with the other trees around. And that makes really stuff interesting for me. Now I realize how a lot of stuff I learned from dancing and art and Aikido is more and more melting together. And a wonderful friend we both know, Miles Kessler, said, once all this different stuff will click together, it may be a major boost in my life. And I feel at this point, even if it will happen in 2, 4, 5 years, but I feel coming closer to this point where everything clicks like together. And till this point, I just will pour water on all my trees I have in my garden. And for your question, of course, there were times where I was a little bit lost in all this, like lost in my own garden, so to say. And then I started to quit this. Maybe I didn't follow that way. So I focused a little bit more on less stuff. But then time came where my focus was widening again, and then a little bit narrowing again. It's like a pulsating, like a pulsing in my life. So
just to jump in, that's an interesting way of thinking about it, is when do you want to narrow in practices and when do you want to widen up? Because both have advantages, don't they, of getting real depth in something. My journey is I started off as a specialist, being obsessed with Aikido, doing Aikido every day. And I became a generalist. And now I'm doing 5 different things a week. And
wow.
I'd say I'm usually running 4 or 5 practices at a time now. And it's, that has advantages and disadvantages, but there may come a time in my life where I say, you know what, I'm really going to just focus on the yoga for the next 5 years. And I think that's a nice conversation to be in, that sort of pulsating, wider and narrower kind of way of looking at it. And also I think as generalists and integrators, we get somewhere maybe deeper and broader in the long run. Like you don't get the ego boost straight away of being the cool one in the class,
Yes.
But there's a way in which we're building a more generalized life understanding, quite possibly, because there's a triangulation process, right? Where if you learn just Aikido or just acro yoga or just whatever, you could learn just that art. But if you do several things, you start seeing the common patterns and the common principles, right? And I think there is real value in that.
Yeah, that's really a key word you just brought up about the principles. We both know that if you, I don't know if it's, I guess with more or less every art where the body is the major instrument, like dancing, Aikido, or yoga, if you do only one thing, and no one, you even have a yoga teacher who just gives normal classes, you maybe need years to understand that there are underlying principles, and if you realize these principles, everything it just gets easier. So if you do 2-3 things together with body movement involved, I guess it's more likely to happen that you realize, okay, that's very similar to this, and you by yourself start to realize, hey, there is something combining all the 3 different things, and then you start to grasp the principles by yourself. Of course, it's a wonderful thing if you have a master teacher who says straight from the beginning, listen, you can do Aikido in a classical way, you can do 1,000 techniques, and if in 10 years you have maybe this and this belt. But if you focus on the principles, you're going to learn the 1,000 techniques in a finger snip because you understand the principle beneath them. So actually, I'm happy that I always had wonderful teachers. And by doing a lot of different but somehow connected stuff, I started to realize these principles by myself. So probably that's an advantage by doing different stuff in the same time.
Yeah. And I was teaching, met someone from another coaching school the other day, Embodied Coaching School, and our approach to embodied coaching has always been to teach the principles, to hit it from a lot of different angles, different teachers. We show it through Bokken and through tango and through conscious dance and through different method yoga. And then they learn the principles, and then they can be creative. And I was really shocked the other day when I was online and someone was asking me advice about how to teach a team building thing. And they only knew one tool from their teacher. And that tool wasn't appropriate for the particular group they wanted to work with. And they weren't able to generate a creative new idea. And I was like, well, all my students can do that. We teach them that from the beginning. But it's like, I feel like there's a quicker learning curve at first if you just tell people this is how you do it. And it's much slower to go a principles route. But then once you've got it, the 10,000 things just open up to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm actually happy that people like you and Miles and Patrick, and you probably know a dozen of other wonderful teachers. I guess we are entering an area as a global community that more and more teachers show up who bring this wisdom about these principles already from the beginning with them. Because in the old area, people were just learning by copying the teacher. They were just doing what they did, and without a lot of reflection and understanding what they were doing. And I just see popping up more and more really wonderful teachers. I mean, this congress you have done last year, the
Embodiment Conference. I mean,
it was. I didn't see, of course, every video, but I had the feeling that all these people were like master teachers because they, from the start, they teach the students not only the movements and what they have to learn, but as well the underlying or the things behind the things. And that's quickening the learning very, very fast. And I guess it's a very important thing because we are entering in a new area of mankind, and like in the Matrix learning where Neo just got the download into his brain. I guess we are entering as well like the quantum consciousness where things are already in the field, and if people are ready to catch this wisdom which is already in the field and to deliver it to other people, the learning is really quickening a lot. And I guess we will see more and more people who are working like that, giving the principles and showing and helping the other students to grow even faster, probably, that the teacher had to learn by himself.
It's definitely a new. We need to wrap up fairly soon, but it is definitely a new era. And I remember seeing Miles and Patrick and thinking they looked like a new breed of Aikido teachers when I first saw them. I think maybe 10 years ago, and they were playing music. And part of me was like, "This is anathema music and Aikido, Matt. What the hell?" And playing games, and I was like, but then I saw that they were able to do things I'd never seen anywhere else. And I'd be like, well, where did you learn that? You know, what sensei? And Miles is like, well, actually, I created that. And I remember thinking, oh, this is different. They're not just taking techniques from, they could both show a classical Awamaru Ikkyo, but they, traditional Aikido, but they don't have to. They're able to generate stuff. They're able to make new ideas. Every workshop I did with Miles was fresh. And I thought, okay, these guys have got they're like a leading edge here. But I'm increasingly seeing that similar vibe in yoga and other things now. And, in Sistema, for example, which I do, it's part of the training. It's fairly established to do things that way. Anyway, you know what? We need to wrap up. Unfortunately, this has been fun and energetic. And, I love I can see why kids like your classes, that kind of enthusiastic energy you bring to it. So, I hope listeners have got something from that. Do you want to give us a closing message about the body?
Yeah, well, actually, one of my dreams or my visions for the future is with this samurai challenge I'm creating with help from other people. I actually would like to invite listeners, no matter from which area they come, even if it's dancing or Sistema or something different, to actually, what I'm dreaming of is like putting all the stuff which we are creating in maybe the next 1, 2, 3 years somewhere in the future, hopefully not such a distant future, and creating like an online course for kids and teenagers all over the world, because I personally believe that our kids and teenagers are the future. It's, of course, this is a truth everyone knows, but I am really dreaming of putting all this powerful stuff in a powerful online course so kids from all over the world can participate and having fun, challenging themselves and make themselves growing even faster than their parents or their friends, and being a role model for the community they are in. So if someone is inspired and says, hey, I have some cool ideas, you could challenge your kids or even the parents, I will be open to receive like feedbacks and inspirations, because I'm like collecting, like you are from all over the world. I'm collecting ideas and bringing them all together, and hopefully I'm able to put that in 1, 2, 3 years on a really cool online course, which hopefully can be open to everyone in the future. That's something I really want to share as well here in this podcast. Yeah.
Cool. And the Embodiment Conference Facebook group would be pretty good for that, because there's a lot of very different people gathered in one place. Cool. So that's the kind of place you can sort of gather ideas and find people to collaborate with.
Cool. Okay. Thanks for mentioning that. Okay, cool.
And where do people find your stuff? If they're in Switzerland, what website should they go to?
Well, I'm still, because I still don't and probably won't have an own dojo, because this is something I just realized that I don't want to run my own dojo, at least not yet. So I don't have my own dojo. I have the website, which is called www.tenchikan, ten like heaven. Tenchikan is actually Japanese, means heaven and earth, .ch. And of course, it's German, but there is a section for kids and adolescents Aikido, and there people can find me. Of course, I have my own projects, my time subject, which is very important for me in my life as well, which I bring as well somehow on the mats. I don't know if you are sharing some kind of links after this podcast. You can just put it underneath. I can share it. We
people listen to it on iTunes, they won't see the links, but if they go to the Embodiment Podcast website, then always the links are up.
Okay, cool. So they probably will find me, and of course they can find me with Urs Jose Zuber on Facebook if they want to connect with me. I would really be happy to get to be inspired by a lot of other people who are listening right now.
Great, and that's Urs, and then Jose spelled Jose, Zuber, Zuber.
Yes, that's right.
Thank you for joining me today.
Well, Mark, it was again a pleasure, and I'm really looking forward to meet you in persona somewhere, somehow again in this real world.
some ways to get more, to give back, and to get more involved now. So the biggest request I have would be to share the podcast with your friends, people that you think would really enjoy it. Email it to them, put it on your social media, tell them about it, old school. Really appreciate that. Equally, if you want to support us financially, you can go to Patreon. That's patreon.com/Embodiment Podcast and give us $1 an episode. And I'd say they're well worth $1. So that's less than £1 if you're in UK-ish. So yeah, please go there. On the embodiedyfacilitator.com website is where this is hosted. If you're, most people I think listen to for iTunes. iTunes, we'd certainly appreciate a review. The way iTunes works means that a review means more people will find it. iTunes regards it as more important for searches. So even a couple of sentences review really does help as a little thank you to us. And if you want to go to embodiedyfacilitator.com, you can see the actual, links to the sites. There's comments on there. The Facebook group tends to be where people discuss things. So if you go to put in the Embodiment Podcast into Facebook, there's a page which is relatively quiet and a group which does have some discussion on. So I will reply to things personally there. So also on embodiedyfacilitator.com website, there's all sorts of freebies there. There's videos, there's free ebooks, there's ebooks you can buy. And of course, there's our newsletter list. If you want to stay in touch and learn about things like the Embodied Facilitator Course and our next Embodied Yoga Principles teacher training, then go to that website and you'll see a little pop-up and you can get the newsletter through there. Okay, so I think they're the main ones. Tell your friends, pay us some money on Patreon, give us a review on iTunes, send us your email if you want to be on the newsletter list, and get involved on the Facebook there. Bit long. Pick whatever you like that works for you.